Hello everyone, I'm Gautam Mahesh. In this video, I'll walk you through creating a functional login and sign up form from scratch. We'll be using Firebase authentication with Auth integration using TypeScript, React, Vite, and Firebase. Ensure that Node.js is installed on your machine as is required to run React. Open your terminal and navigate to the directory where you'll be setting up your project. Enter the following command. Any command or code you need to copy and paste will be provided in the description below. Name your project. I'll use authentication for this demo. Use the arrow keys to select React as your framework, and then select TypeScript for the React variant. Once the project is set up, open the project up in your preferred IDE. Now that your project is set up, let's configure the routes to navigate between pages like login, sign up, and the home page. First, install the necessary packages by entering the following command in the terminal within your project folder. Then, run the command to install React Router, which will handle the routing between pages. Once that's done, open the main file, where we'll need to set up the routes for each page. Follow the code on the screen and pause the video if needed. Let's start by importing the package we installed earlier with this line of code. Next, delete the old app component and set up the routes. We'll begin by adding the root path and a navigator. Then add the login and sign up paths later. Now, open app.tsx, which will serve as our homepage to check if we're logged in. Start by deleting the app.css file and the 3 import lines at the bottom since we won't be using them. Next, remove all the existing content within the component and replace it with the h1 tag that says, "You're currently logged in," as a placeholder to indicate that we're logged in and able to access the page. Before we start coding the frontend for the login and sign up pages, we need to install and configure TailwindCSS in our project. Follow along with what I'm doing. The commands and code snippets will be in the description for you to copy and paste. Now we need to install and configure Firebase for our authentication system in our project. Head over to firebase.google.com and go to console. Now create a new project. Enter in your project name. For this demo, I'll be using authentication. Now let's add a web app. Enter in your app name. Once again, I'll be using authentication for this demo. And then hit register app. Now we install the Firebase package. Run this command in your dedicated terminal for this project. Next, we'll use the code provided to initialize Firebase. Now we'll configure authentication and authentication methods in our Firebase project. First, head over to the Authentication tab in the sidebar and hit Get Started. Now enable the email, password option, and Google option. Now that everything is set up for development, we can start creating the login page. Make a copy of the app.tsx file and rename it to login.tsx. First, import all the necessary packages. Then, change the line where the component is defined. Initialize Firebase authentication and navigation. Next, create state variables for managing authentication state, email, password, and error messages. Add the function to handle sign-in with Google and implement the sign-in with Google functionality using Firebase. Add another function to handle sign-in with email and password and implement the sign-in with email and password functionality using Firebase. For the front end, start by removing the h1 tag and adding a container for the full screen. Add the left half of the screen for background styling and the right half for the login form. Add a header section with the title and welcome message. Then add the input fields for email and password, followed by a button to log in with email and password. Add a display error message for any authentication errors. Add a divider to separate the email and password login button from the Google login button. Then add the button to login with Google. Finally, add a link to the sign-up page for users who don't have an existing account. Go back to main.tsx to import the login.tsx file. Add a new route with the path /login for the login page. Now let's test it out using the command npm run dev, which will host the website locally. As you can see, the login page works and displays errors as well. We'll test the login functionality after creating the sign-up page. Now let's start creating the sign-up page. Make a copy of the app.tsx file once again and rename it to signup.tsx. First, import all the necessary packages. Then, change the line where the component is defined. Initialize Firebase authentication and navigation. Next, create state variables for managing authentication state, email, password, and error messages. Add the function to handle sign up with Google and implement the sign up with Google functionality using Firebase. Add another function to handle sign up with email and password and implement the sign up with email and password functionality using Firebase. For the front end, start by removing the h1 tag and adding a container for the full screen. Add the left half of the screen for background styling and the right half for the sign-up form. Add a header section with the title and welcome message. Then add the input fields for email, password, and confirm password followed by a button to sign up with email and password. Add a display error message for any authentication errors. Add a divider to separate the email and password sign up button from the Google sign up button. Then add the button to sign up with Google. Finally, add a link to the sign up page for users who don't have an existing account. Now we can go back to main.tsx to import the signup.tsx file. Add a new route with the path /signup for the signup page. Now let's test it out using the command npm run dev, which will host the website locally. As you can see, the signup page works and displays errors as well. Now let's create the auth route component to manage routing based on the user's authentication status, which will be used for the homepage. Start by creating a new file called authroute.tsx. Follow along with the code I'm writing. Go back to main.tsx and import auth route. Wrap the original app component in auth route. This setup will ensure that you can only access the homepage if you're logged in. If you're logged out, you'll be redirected to the login page instead. Now let's test the authentication system out. Thanks for watching my video. If I missed anything or if any code was cut out, please check the GitHub source code linked in the description below.